Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. You got a microphone today, and we added some more lights. Okay, so there's some backlighting there that hopefully will help a bit as well. We're working on this, folks. We're trying to get you some of the best lighting there is in the backwoods of Alberta. Standard's not very high, so we'll reach it. But good morning. Good morning. It is a chilly one this morning. I woke up chilly. Everything's chilly. We're not quite into summer, right? We're still working on spring, but it's nice and chilly. How are you all doing? Are you guys cold? Are you warm? Do you got your boilers on? You got your wood stoves on? What are you doing this morning? Are you usually it's a little chilly here? Good morning, Clay. Wonderful, perfect timing. I needed some coffee, Clay. Good. Hey, Clay, so you do a polar bear sometimes, you do a brown bear sometimes, you do a black bear, do you have other bears? It's pretty cool that you have a bit of a selection there, bud. Good morning, Padge. Nice to hear from you. We couldn't hang out again last night. You're not feeling so good, but you're getting there. You're getting there. It was moving from the top of the chest, the throat, up to the sinuses, now into the head. It's moving its way out of Padge. So maybe we'll get to see her soon. Good morning, John. Good morning to the Plaid Army and Yellowhead Yacht Club. It's a great day to be Canadian. I'm glad you're excited. I'm glad you're happy. And hey, John, if you check the last couple episodes, I've been plaiding it up for you, bud. Yesterday, I even had the red black on. So go ahead and rewatch them at your leisure. But there you go, buddy. I was I was thinking of you, and I brought some plaid this time. And Yacht Club Army, what do you think? But tomorrow night, maybe we'll try the first one back tomorrow night, John. And John, I'm down to like Thursday and Friday next week as the days that are available. So if you want to pick one of those, we'll make that our conversation about church and state and some other things. Okay, bud? Good morning, Ellen. What a lovely sunshine for you today. Let me show you what we're working with today. Overcast. Okay, there's no smell of smoke in the air, but there's overcast. Yeah, maybe the sun will poke out today. I'll leave it in the corner so you guys can watch my sunrise and enjoy it like I do. But good morning, Alan. Azario. Oh, by the way, what do you think of this? We're going to try to put it up in this corner for a bit. See if that works out a little bit better. Having it down at the bottom, it gets underneath things. But let me know what you think. But yeah, thank you, Ali, for putting that up. Morning, folks. Frost last night. Thank goodness I covered up the plants. Fire going. Yeah, there's a chilly one, I guess, everywhere. At least all the way to Ontario. But yeah, it was cold. And then John says, I wear it well. Well, thank you, John. I really do appreciate that. And John, maybe you can give us some input on what you think we should put into the background. Do you want to see something like an axe? Do you want to see... I'm working on a Canadian flag. I'm working on a special Canadian flag. So we'll see what we can do there. Do you want me to put some credentials up there? Like it matters. Like whatever. I got a couple of them. But let me know what you want up there. Do you want little pieces of me, like an airplane thing and a law thing or something? Let me know what you guys would like up there. And by the way, if you want to send some fan art or something like that, I would put it up. Azario may make some time later this year to maybe make something. But for the time being, I'll put up a backwoods, something. I'll just use some wood that's laying around and I'll build up something for the shelving. But let me know what you would like to see up there and what you wouldn't like to see up there. I'm not here to, be a silly guy with silly stuff back there. But let me know what you would and wouldn't like to see back there, and we'll see what we got. But then also, how's the lighting? I can see there's a bit of a shadow in this corner here. I do have that light there now. I have one here. I have one in front of me. I'm improving. Every show, there'll be something new. But thank you, everybody, for returning. And I enjoy this time with you. So we'll go ahead and keep improving this show to the point where, well, I'm sure we'll always be improving it. But yeah, and also share with your friends. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And make sure you do that stuff because it really does help. YouTube is suppressing myself a little bit. And I'm not quite back on Twitter, even though I am paying for Blue. And I was playing for Blue before. paying for blue before, and but I lost my check mark. I don't think they took it away from me. I think they just canceled blue for everybody to raise the price. I didn't catch that notice, so I have to go through the process again. But it doesn't matter. But anyways, hit me up on Twitter too. Still pretty active. Okay, folks. Let me take a look at my notes. Big thank you to everybody again for coming back. People like Ellen and Clay and Padge especially, who help with the show as well, make suggestions. Azario, you're all over that. Of course, John is as well. So thank you all for that as well. And I can let you know about some guests for next week. So Tom Marazzo has confirmed. We've worked on the promo. He will be here all day Monday. So we'll be hearing from him, his book, his podcast, his journey before the convoy, after the convoy, his appearance at the POEC. So we're talking about that. On Tuesday, we have a Twitter memer who goes by Government Corrupt, I believe it is, something like that. His name is Kevin. Nice guy. He's got quite the opinionated view about the government, how bad the government is. His opinion is we don't need government at all. Like, zilch, nothing. We'll push back a little bit on that one, because if we were a country that had none, we'd have no border, we'd have no army, and we would just be collected by the next government that decided to come take us. So self-governing is great, but self-defense on a global scale is a little bit outside the reach of, at least my abilities. So there's still some need for government. So I'd like to chat to Kevin a bit more about that. Especially being a candidate, what does he think about that? If I'm actively trying to be part of the new government, what does he think about that? And then on Wednesday, I found an awesome podcaster in Saskatchewan, Schmidt House Podcast, I think it is. He's agreed to come on as well. He's kind of similar as me. He's out in Saskatchewan. He's doing his thing. He's doing his podcasts. He's definitely along a similar road. He's trying to keep the government honest. He's reporting on them. So I'm looking forward to having a podcaster conversation on Wednesday for him. And then Thursday, Friday, still open. I've reached out to Jeremy McKenzie to see if he would like to be part of an episode. It's always tough to get a hold of him, but we'll see. The creator of the comedy group Diagonal. They came up in the POEC. He was also a witness in the POEC. So if we're able to get him to show up, we can talk to him a bit about the comedy group and his most recent roadshow appearance on the POEC. So I'd like to chat with him a bit about that, but we'll see what we can do. No confirmation from him yet. Kevin Wilson got back to me. So the lawyer from the Freedom Convoy, he's part of the provincial election. So he's keeping his head down until the end of the election. So we could hear from him in June. In June, we'll probably hear from him. Give him some time after the election. And that's what we're here today to talk about, too, is the election. I've reached out to Danielle Smith's office and Notley's office. I did reach out very late, though, so I didn't really expect any responses from them. But if they do get back to me and they do want to say something, then we'll talk about getting them on the show at any time, maybe next week or the week after. But it's going to be soon, because that election is coming up. And that's what we're here for today. We're going to be talking about the election today. All right, let me go back to the chat and see how you guys are all doing. Oh, wow. You were well. Thank you very much, Mr. John. And here's Jace number 2, Ellen. Sorry, I'm so glad I did sync mine yet. I didn't sync mine yet. My garlic and asparagus are in full swing and keeping my impatience cool. Yeah, we did garlic first time this year too. So Padge, throw a comment in there. Ellen's doing garlic. You're doing garlic. I know it's the only thing Paula did during the winter. Is asparagus another one of those things that you do over the winter and they kind of pop up in the spring? Let me know. Thanks, Ellie, for the... but Ellie, I will take care of the schedule on that. Just you worry about the end show. Thanks, bud. Azario. I have garlic too. Everybody's got garlic. Should we be the Yellowhead Garlic Club? Everybody's doing garlic. Even our neighbor does that too. But not worried about that. But peppers, tomatoes, Oh, dude, you had to get into stuff I can't pronounce. And Penitz. Please. I can't say that one. Good morning, Scott, Mayor of Alexandria. I'm good. I'm glad to see you again. How is Alexandria? Is it chilly too? Did you guys get a bit of a frost as well? Probably, because Azario's in southeastern Ontario and he's chilly, so you're definitely gonna be chilly. And I guess nobody had any hockey to watch last night, right? That's over. Yes, mine are outgrowing their pots, but I realize your urge to put them out. Nice. And then Alan's telling us asparagus is perennial, planted in April and grown for a few years before you can harvest. Really? Okay. Well, let's get on that patch. Maybe we should get some asparagus going too. You got some room for it. Your production team has solved the lighting issue. Yeah. We had a team meeting with the production people, which included me and myself and I, and we put our heads together and worked that out. The last few days, John, we've been playing around with it, and today we added lights here to kind of do the backdrop lighting, trying to get rid of that shadow that I have there, but it's not perfect. And put some lighting over here, John. You can see it off camera, and I got some lighting right in front of me. You can see the reflection over here of that one. But we're working on it, bud. We're certainly working on it. And unfortunately, my book fell down, John. So let me try and put that back up. It's so chilly that even the tape was not working well. So I'll put it where that light is. Try and get rid of that glare. And showcase the proof. That's why there's a band across the middle of here. That won't be on the final book. That's just a not for resale band, because I paid cost to get this printed, not any profit for Amazon. So they do that. It's a proof. But you'll see the printed one soon. And thanks for the compliment on the lighting. I am trying to make it work there, bud. Like I showed the team yesterday, I'm using paper to filter the lights a bit. If it's too bright, I put a sheet of paper in front. And if you're adventurous, John, go to the end of yesterday's episode. I videoed with with an echoing microphone. I videoed my view, so you can kind of see my setup here. It's very Bush League. And then Scott's confirming, yep, NHL done for the season. Always next year. I think that's the Toronto Maple Leafs trademark, isn't it? Always next year. 19 years to get to the second round. Ooh. I hope it's not another 19 years before they do that again. Or you guys, well, you're not going to be upset. Ontario seems to support the Leafs regardless of what they do. But we did expect more out of the Oilers this year. We did expect more. And then Scott is confirming that, yep, always next year is the official trademark for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Just to let you know, Toronto Maple Leafs like third on my list of teams. It's Oilers, Winnipeg, so the Jets, and then Toronto. Fell in love with the Oilers in the 80s when I was just a kid. Grew up a bit with the Jets when I was in Winnipeg, and then certainly my adult life, I was out in Toronto. So kind of jumped on that bandwagon because they need support. They certainly need it. Golf, Leafs, golf. Yeah, that's their off-season slogan, isn't it? And how are they at golf? Anybody know? Are they even good at that? Do they choke when it gets the pressure high? And what's this? Ottawa all the way? Who's going to be your new owner there, Scott? Is it going to be Snoop Dogg and team? Who's going to be the new owner? It's kind of neat how they're doing that. Dream Team 2007. Been a while, bud. Been a while. And Ali asked, he goes, should we keep wearing the same cap? You guys tell me. Do you want to keep seeing a trucker cap on me that showing the candidacy, or do you guys want to see something else? Let me know. I kind of like it. It's kind of a brand, but I'm open to input. And then, of course, Scott wanted Reynolds. Yeah, he bowed out. It's getting expensive. Not sure it would have made much of a difference, but cool. All right, so Ali is reminding me we do have a show. Alberta Election. Even though if you're in Ontario, stick around for this one, because where and what Alberta does in this election could be the rudder for Canada. Are we going to do a sharp left and head towards sovereignty? Are we going to do a sharp right, head towards separation? Are we going to do nothing and just let whichever government comes in next continue to do whatever governments do? I don't know. The other than the smoke in the air, there's something else in the air in Alberta. We're pretty frustrated, where you're not super happy with even conservative government around here. We're the butt of the jokes. We don't get things done. We don't have any push on a federal level. Yet we continuously put in a conservative government on the federal level, but then we switch conservative NDP on the provincial level. I've usually been a fan, especially when I was in Ontario, of your provincial government not matching your federal government's party, because it did require and cause them to negotiate and work together better than you would if they were the same party, so conservative. But I don't think that's true for me in Alberta. That was true for me in Ontario. So when we had a conservative federal government, I was kind of pleased at times that there was a liberal provincial one, only to give the counter to them. But when we have a conservative provincial government like you do now with Doug Ford and a liberal federal government, of course, there's still friction there too, and they don't necessarily get like anything done either. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. The relationship between the provincial leadership and the federal leadership is a complicated one. It's always been a complicated one in Canadian history, right back since the very beginning. Probably, maybe second only to the U.S. when it comes to a rich history of the states versus the federalism. So in Canada, we have a federalist system where it's top down. All right, so the federal government makes rules. In the United States, it's more state-led or republic. So the states themselves do most of the work and the regulations and laws and all that good stuff. The government, but in Canada, we're more federal and top down, run by the constitutions and sections 91 and 92 of the Constitution. So that relationship is very important. How does the province make moves in the federal system, work with the federal government? We've seen Danielle and Mr. Prime Minister get together from time to time and have to talk, but we don't get too much done. There's consistently, historically, been this east-west push on Alberta, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba. BC's kind of usually left on its own, but the prairies, where we make all our food and where we have the breadbasket, certainly has a different relationship with Ottawa and east side of Canada. So this election, what I think is really important, because sovereignty and separation is basically on the table. Sovereignty, we live under our Constitution, 91, 92, where we laid out the powers of the province and the powers of the federal government, and we stick to it. And then that means anything that's not listed there stays with the people. A sovereign Alberta would be one that would manage its own resources, take care of its own healthcare system, take care of its education system, and everything else listed under 92, Section 92 of our Constitution. We wrote these a long time ago, and we wrote them for the purpose of making sure that the government didn't overreach, and that's exactly what they're doing. So sovereignty doesn't mean Alberta's coming up with a new document that is going to destroy the Canadian Constitution in any way, a charter. Like, we're not trying to get rid of that at all. We're trying to live within it. And Danielle Smith's document that she passed as soon as she got elected, I don't have the name in front of me, but it was our Sovereignty Act. A lot of people in the East, and especially the media, kept trying to make people understand that it was a new document, it was a new position that Alberta was taking, and it was going to lead to the tearing up of Canada. Fake news, total fake news. We actually are not creating anything new. What we've done was we created a document to put the government on notice that we intend to stick to 91 and 92. It really wasn't more than that. But the press, boy, did they really push that. It did die down because it didn't really carry a lot of weight what the press was saying. So we did get back to business, basically. But what do you think? Separation or sovereignty? What I think will happen is we will this election. So if we get to Danielle back in, then we'll continue harder pushing on the sovereignty front. And I believe that Danielle might have been, oh gosh, I hope I'm right on this one. I hope she was just trying to appease some people for this election to make sure she can get through, and then come in with that heavy hand and uh, start tearing apart some things and rebuilding some things. For example, Alberta Health Services, she started on that one. So I'm hoping that that's what I'm reading in this. Otherwise, she would be a weak leader, because she's saying things and then not doing it. She is coming forward um, and then backpedaling. So, for example, one of the issues that she said she was going to pass was reform to the Alberta Human Rights Code, which would make it impossible, illegal for employers to use your medical condition, your health status, as one of the um, things that they're looking at and whether or not to keep you employed. So, for example, race and sex and a whole bunch of other things we've already identified that you can't discriminate against. Uh, Health was supposed to be one of those. And Danielle came out strong during her campaign saying, I'm passing that one right away. I'm going to protect your jobs. Never again can your health status be the reason why you lose your job. And then she backpedaled on that one, quietly pulled back. Her argument was it wasn't going to be easy to get something in there that was permanent. It was difficult. I don't like hearing that out of leaders. If it's difficult, that means you need to do it. It just means you need to roll up your sleeves and work harder. You definitely should have passed that one, Danielle. That one bothered me when you quietly pulled back on that one. That bothered me. There was a couple others. You were looking to eliminate any tickets for COVID and stuff like that. I understand why you ran into a problem there. The judicial system made it a problem because elected officials should not be influencing the Crown at all. They should not be dictating to the Crown what they can and can't do. That's what the laws are for. You can have opinions, you can give recommendations, but you can't give requirements or orders. So whether she didn't know that when she was running and talking about it, and she found out on the job later or whatnot, that's the case. On the other side, Notley. She loves the cities. She loves pandering to the needy. She loves telling everybody she's going to do everything that they want that costs money, but not really working with the idea of using our own resources, raising our own funds. She's very typical NDP. She's progressive. She's pushing forward some pretty radical stuff, and she's not blatant about it. She did hit the airwaves at one point and said that if NDP wins, they would go door to door to vaccinate people. I don't think she thought that out. Rural, we don't have door to door. We have gate to gate, okay, kilometers apart. And, the RCMP is minutes away, not seconds away. Don't come out and try and force anybody to do anything, Notley, even if you win. It's not a good idea. Yeah, it's exactly how you make separation. In addition to that, I believe that if Notley wins, the separation movement will kick up again, just like the wildfires. They'll be raging again. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see us take one more step towards separation. Separation is a very delicate issue. I know some of the people involved have said they've thought out all the issues like landlocked, global markets, being flagged as an uncooperative state by even Canada or the U.S. It's a very difficult thing. You should look at separation much like you would a divorce. If you take marriage very seriously, look at it like a divorce. There's really last case scenario. If there's absolutely nothing else can be done, it's a matter of being under tyrannical government by force or separation. Maybe that's where you draw your line, but I think we're far from that, folks. Okay, I think we're far from that. So I wouldn't like to see the separation movement spin up again. I would understand it. I would know why. I can relate with the sentiment of it. But my desire is to work it out. kind of grow up as a province, stand up on our own 2 feet, do our own thing. Ottawa's going to complain. But kind of like when you're an adult and you leave the house, your parents may still want you to come back. They may want you around all the time. They may want you to call in all the time. They may want you to come and get some more permission. They may want even you to come to them for resources. That is kind of normal as you're leaving home. But Alberta's got to kind of do that. They kind of have to leave home, um, stay within the family, but not within the house. So that would be what I would call sovereignty and independence. And that's where I'd like to go, because I believe Alberta could be a good example to several other provinces like Saskatchewan and even on the East Coast on how to go about utilizing your resources, running your own ship, doing your own thing um, within the unity of Canada. I think stronger provinces would make for a stronger Canada, coast to coast. We don't need this parental relationship of Ottawa, really Ottawa and Montreal, in Toronto, controlling us. It's time. It's time. In the early days of Canada, sure, made some sense. We needed some protections. We were just growing out, especially the West. It was just being discovered and the pioneers were just making their way out here. During that time of Canada, sure, it made sense to have Ottawa and Montreal a little bit more involved in things. But we're well past that. We're established now. We've been established for a while, and now it's time to go ahead and start doing that. Now, Notley's position, of course, actually, both of the positions are similar to this in that they don't want separation. Okay, neither one of them is actually calling for separation. Although Danielle is definitely pushing sovereignty as an issue, and Notley is trying to steer away from that. Her approach is it's basically good enough. We just need a little bit more negotiation with Ottawa, and that's all we need. Whereas Danielle is a little bit more firm, and she wants to change the relationship with Ottawa to be closer to what we're supposed to have, which is true sovereignty. So it looks to me like Notley is looking to have status quo and then do some negotiations. Maybe she's aware of a little bit more of that NDP Liberal partnership. Maybe she feels that with the NDP Liberal partnership, she could get some negotiations done. Maybe that's where she's coming from. She does feel like she has an in when they have such a tight partnership on a federal level. I'm not sure. She hasn't really been speaking about that. She just basically says, I will negotiate. I'm not trying to separate. Danielle's not trying to separate either. But if this election goes NDP, I can see how the separatist movement would gain a lot more momentum. So on that one, I would give it to Danielle because she is trying to get us back to proper sovereignty, whereas Notley is trying to keep the status quo and maybe work some deals where she has some leverage. And that doesn't make me comfortable because I don't know much about that. All right. So we have about 10 topics that we're going to go through. We're going to go through some of them, take a little bit longer than others. But yeah, we'll make it through. Another top issue for them. Actually, before I go to the next one, I'm going to jump into the chat and catch up on the chat before I go through the next one so that the topics are still aligned. Ellen thinks I should be wearing a crown to celebrate your new monarch. Mr. Charles, King Charles. That's just a big cluster, takes up a lot of news. It's all over the place. And recently we had an attempted car chase to end tragically. So history trying to repeat itself or people using that attention. It's on this channel, you're not going to see a lot of the monarch unless we're talking about King's Council, King's Court. That would be about it because we do have a legal system that's kind of tied into the monarch. Taping your book to the window of your trailer. Now that's hardcore Canadian. John, you want to see hardcore Canadian? You go to the end of the episode yesterday and you'll see that I have a piece of plywood with cardboard on top, duct tape around the front to keep the splinters out of my hands. It's draped over a bench in my trailer. I'm sitting where a table's supposed to be. And that's just getting started. I have a crate holding up lights that have paper in front as filters because there's no adjusting control, dimming at all. I am Bush League for Bush League, but I'm happy with that. Low cost. If something breaks, I'm talking dollars, not thousands, And I make do with what I got. And I think that's the kind of candidate people want. Do with what you got, create what you need, and be happy with what you produced. And I am. And Clay says Ontario Liberal is a sore spot for sure. Yeah, like Liberals and Conservative on the provincial level. You guys still are growing well, though. You're still becoming an economic powerhouse. You are still becoming some global leaders in certain things. So even with the history of Liberal in Ontario, you still are progressing well enough that you should be proud. You don't have to be pleased with everything, but overall, I do say Ontario has had decent enough government that it has become a low global leader. And we are proud, even in Alberta, we are proud that Alberta does what it does on a global stage. Auto manufacturing, you're getting into batteries, you're getting into other things. Keep it up, but you won't find perfection there either. And Clay, I think you know that. You still live there. And a lot of people making their way out here. Not a plug, but I am selling land. So in the next coming weeks, somebody could be buying a home out here soon. John, for the upcoming Alberta election, what are your thoughts on transparent fairness of the electoral process in Alberta and then in Canada? Federal level, I'm more comfortable because there's a whole bunch of ways that federal level does it still by hand. They have counter, they have local people. If you're trying to relate to shenanigans that we see in other countries, especially in the South, look, I go forward with a lot of faith and optimism in people. So generally, I believe that people will do the right thing, so they'll count correctly and they will not have some shenanigans. However, just like everywhere else, there's going to be questions. There's always fraud. There's always somebody trying to attempt something. It doesn't mean the entire election should be tossed out. But let's see how this goes, John. If there's a lot of questions around it, but typically on the provincial level, this is not normally an issue. We're not talking about hundreds of millions of votes. We're talking about millions. And we'll see how it goes, John. But I personally, if you're asking me, Jay, do you trust that the elections on the provincial and federal level are fair? I'm going to say yes until I see something otherwise, something that makes me believe it didn't happen. For example, 100% NDP, right? But we'll see. We'll see. What I certainly don't trust are the polls or the media. So when the poll in the media says NDP is caught up and is surpassing, that means there's a big gap in my mind because that means they're quite a ways away if the media is saying that. So that's certainly what I don't trust. I don't trust the news in the polls on the election. But it's our neighbors who counted. Okay. I still have faith that Albertans will not be cheating Albertans. But let's see what happens. Okay. We're only a couple weeks away. And then John says, Clay Bear, you mean Ontario Closet Liberals, also known as Dougie Ford Funky Bunch. Yeah, you got some opinions on that, John. So hopefully Thursday or Friday could work for you. And we'll get you out here and on the show and we'll talk about that. But Doug, I was disappointed. I wanted Doug at the POEC. I wanted Doug to do a few things. And he is the primary reason why we had to leave. Employment was becoming too difficult for our lifestyle. Homeschooling, homesteading, and careful of what we put in our bodies. Those were all things that didn't subscribe well to his programming. I was thinking of a dynamic McGilty win. Oh man, that's when my wife started to change her. Like most people, young, liberalish. The win is when she really started to get pilled. Okay. She did not like some of the things that Win was doing. And typically that would have been stuff that she may have liked, but no, she did not like Win. And then when it comes to Miss Smith, remember, past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. I know, John. I know. And she's had issues in the past. But she's also come forward with that. I don't think you're wrong because she does say things that she doesn't end up doing. Maybe she speaks before she thinks. Maybe she speaks before she checks. Not sure. I would love to chat with her. I do know some of the people around her, like Kevin Wilson is honorable, and I do respect him. I do respect some other people that she has around her. So we'll see where it goes. Given all our options, we don't have a alternative at this point. Maybe in the coming years, somebody from Alberta will rise up on a provincial level, but we'll see. Oh, there goes that book again. Padge, if you have some more tape, I could use some. But we'll see. Okay, I think people deserve second chances, but you're not wrong that it's hard to change old spots. She's got my support because she's the best option. She doesn't have my support because I believe everything she says or is doing. She has my support because she's the best of the two. And then Clay, for the most part, I'm happy. I mean, it could be BC, but the fringery with Greenbelt, fringery with Greenbelt and city superpowers and all that jazz ain't really good. Yeah, well, you certainly, if you had a urban versus rural problem, then it would be a big one for you. If it ever came to that in Canadian landscape, or rural versus urban, you'd have a big problem. If cities collapse, you'd have a huge problem because you have a massive amount of people that can't take care of themselves. So that'd be a big problem. But as long as the economy and the global environment stay productive, fruitful, Ontario's doing well. It's doing well. Yeah, I am proud. You guys don't talk nice about us sometimes, but just like a regular relationship, sometimes you don't get along, but overall, not bad. Not bad. I think we need each other. A lot. I'd like to see a lot more innovation, cooperation between Ottawa or Ontario and the rest of the country. You guys have a lot of innovation there, a lot of technology there. You basically have the Silicon Valley of Canada out there, the London area. Certainly a lot of tech there, and Mars is an incubator. That's in Toronto. It's very, very good tech there. I'd like to see Alberta do some more of that. We do a lot of energy and forestry and agriculture, but I'd like to see us get into some more tech stuff too. Peel region to be dissolved as well, possibly not. Oh, really? To what? So they're just going to go down to cities, like municipalities? What are they dissolving to? Cool. Peel's a big region. All right, so back to the program here. So healthcare privatization. Okay. So Notley, we'll start with Danielle on this one. So Danielle said privatization could potentially improve efficiency, improve health delivery, and reduce wait times in the healthcare system as a pro. And then as a con, further privatization may lead to inequitable access to healthcare services with better care available for those who can afford it. Typical argument. We see this a lot in Canada, this particular argument. Should we have a hybrid system? Should we allow... Well, I think a hybrid system is the only way to go. We're not going to replace public with private. But some of these arguments, like we will lose good doctors to the private sector and they're not in the public sector. Well, let me be the first to let you know that's happening already. We're losing them to the US market. So I'd much rather they stay in Canada and still had access to a private market and stayed in Canada. So the argument that if we go private and a hybrid private, we'll lose good doctors from the public to the private. We already are. We're just losing them to the wrong country right now. Privatization only for the rich? Really? Do you really think that's the way it would be set up? Or would the private system have services that could be covered by the public system if they were the sole source and the best source of that service? I can't see why a hybrid system couldn't work out. A place for rich to go to kind of skip the line. See, if that's the reason why you don't have private, and that's like the sole reason why, well, you're being classist a bit. I'm not saying people shouldn't. Why would you exclude the ability to get something because someone has the ability to get it? That's where I'm at with this one. It's not that they're taken away from the public. In fact, the argument could be made that, well, they're not utilizing the public services. So those services, if a bunch of people leave the public for private, the public will have more resources because the resources don't have to be cut down just because people are leaving to the private system. Keep the public system funded. You'll just have less people in it. Is that not beneficial to the public system? Does that not help the public system free up some space, free up some resources, spread it around a little bit more? So the argument can be made that if people are able to cover the costs of some of their healthcare, let them, so that the public system is not covering those exact same costs. So if somebody has to go in for, um, let's say, the public system covers a certain type of reconstructive surgery after an accident, but the private system will take it more cosmetically and will take it a step further. So the public system will do their best to put you back together and keep you alive. But when it comes to cosmetic level stuff, typically those aren't covered unless they are quality of life related. Um, that's where private would definitely be a secondary option and allow a different care. I'm not really sure why people have such a paranoia about having any private anything. We do it for dental, like you could pay extra to do more dental, even though we have some dental programs now, thanks to that Liberal NDP partnership. We've spent billions on that. But there's an example where you certainly can pay for more and get more. Prescription drugs, you can get the generic one through Canada, is covered typically, but the non-generic one isn't. So if the non-generic one is the one you're looking for, why can't you have access to it? Why do you go to the US market for that? Again, like with most things, I don't think there's a magic bullet answer, but I can't imagine that a public system would be strained if a private hybrid system did develop. Now, Notley's position is the pro for her is a public delivery of health services can ensure universal access, potentially delivering more equitable, there's that word, and affordable health care. Again, the thing is a fool's errand. Like every single time they promise that if you get me in, I will fix it immediately and there'll be no wait times. That's another fake promise that we keep hearing as Canadians all the time. Wait times are because the system's busy, and sometimes there's other reasons. Like I've been into waiting rooms where it wasn't busy, it didn't appear busy, but they were still moving at a pace. In either case, nobody can change the healthcare system overnight. I don't care who you are and what ambitions you have, you would not be able to change overnight. So any promise to quickly fix it is just a fake promise that we hear every election. So be careful of that. Look for the substance of what they're saying they're going to do. And when they say general things like equitable, be cautious. Equitable could mean not for everybody, particular class of people, not for you. Could also mean if you're not vaxxed, not for you. Notley definitely has not been saying that she would do anything to correct that. We do have some patients in Alberta looking for transplants that can't get them because of their status. And even with Danielle in power, that's still a problem. And I'm sure Notley is not going to fix that one in any way, shape, or form. The con for Notley, publicly funded systems may struggle with long wait times and lack of incentive to innovate or improve efficiency, as seen in some private systems. So she's trying to claim that if there's a private one, it's going to take incentives and innovation out of the public system. I disagree with that. It could even lead to a little bit of competition. The private sector can develop something new because they are profit motivated. They are looking at ways to attract people to come buy the product, which means they will lower the cost and do what they can to lower the costs. When the cost of that stuff comes down in the private sector, it goes into the public sector as well. We see this with a lot of stuff that the government, when we have competition, that the government stays out of, that prices of stuff and quality of stuff and innovation of stuff goes up. So this could be also the case with healthcare. Why not? We could have some more innovation. So overall, I would say neither one of them has anything that's really attractive. There's a lot of talk about but it's the same talk we hear every single time. Danielle has been in it for a little bit. She has changed some of the Alberta healthcare system. She got rid of some of the leadership, the board, but she didn't get rid of all of their partnerships. So the WEF and Alberta Health Services partnership is still active, last I looked, still on their website. So she may have cleaned house on some leadership, but she didn't clean the house on partnerships. So I'd like to see her do that. And then, of course, if Notley gets in, I am afraid that the healthcare system will get worse because additional promises that she's going to be make are going to be expensive and may not be adequately allotting the resources. So I don't see anything out of both of them. So when it comes to healthcare, for me, it's a wash. Neither one of them has convinced me that they have the Alberta's best interest on that particular issue, because they're both replicating the same talking points that we hear everywhere all the time. All right. Indigenous. Did I say that right? Indigenous. I've been working on that word for an hour before the show. Indigenous. I couldn't say that before. Yay. So before I get to that one, let me catch up on the healthcare conversation. Holy smokes. You guys are great. McGitty, Smith. Most part, you're happy. Peel's okay, so Mississauga and Brampton are going back to independence, and I suppose Caledon too. Yeah, so I was, part of the Peel region. I did a lot of volunteering in the Peel region. I was part of Silicon Peel. I started that. This was an initiative with the government, Startup Canada. Yeah, Startup Canada. And we, built out access to industry. So we were connecting, people like Microsoft with small businesses, Microsoft's in Mississauga. We were doing a lot of that kind of stuff. So kind of sad to see that they're breaking up, but they're big enough. They're big enough. And maybe Caledon and Brampton will be working closer together, because Caledon's still quite small, but they definitely have a good tax base there. So I can't imagine they can't run on their own. But okay. I wonder if this is a step towards something bigger. Is Toronto going to expand and absorb Mississauga, Brampton, or something? I don't know. I haven't heard about that. But all right, that was my stomping ground. I was in Brampton for quite some time, lived in Mississauga for a little bit, Oakville and Toronto as well. Or Caledon, Agnes with one or the other. I think Brampton would make sense if they did. If they did do that, it would make sense. And then equity of outcome or equity of opportunity. They don't even know. So Bernie Sanders was asked that question. He doesn't even know the difference between those two things. But I'm certain we're going to get into that, another topic there, Azario. You can't, we'll get into that one. That was a long one. Indigenous. I said it right? Indigenous. So this is an issue too. So rights and land claims, UPC, so Danielle. Natural resource development can help Indigenous communities become self-sufficient and economically stable. Sounds good. That sounds good. If they can do that, and that's what they want, sounds good. It's a good soundbite, I guess, there, Danielle. A con, though, would be this perspective can sometimes undermine Indigenous rights and claims, potentially leading to disputes and social unrest. So you throwing out that threat that they're going to unrest, they're going to have disputes, there's going to be problems? Not likely. What's likely is, as long as we treat everybody with respect that they deserve and the sovereignty that they have, including Indigenous communities and rights, and as long as we stick to the agreements that we already have in place, I think for the most part, we can get along. We can continue the conversation around things like burial grounds around schools. Should we be dealing with that issue more heads-on, more direct? Should we be closing that issue? Find some closure with all parties involved? Should we be doing something about that so we don't have to continuously embarrass ourselves on a global stage and say at some point some bad people did some bad things, so we should be, dealing with it today? Maybe, but let's get back to original agreements. Let's get back to what we have on the table already, and let's get back to maintaining the rights that we already have and the sovereignty that we already have. And I suspect you're going to see a lot of things change. Danielle's position on this is closer to, if Alberta was managing their own resource rights, including Indigenous lands, then we all prosper. I don't think she's wrong on that one. I think that's one she does have right. Notley, on the other hand, pretty typical NDP response, respectful engagement with Indigenous communities and the recognition of treaty rights could foster a more equitable, there's that word again, society and help address past injustices. Like what? What past injustices do you want to address? What needs to be equitable society? And that's her pro. Her con, It might lead to economic uncertainties, especially in terms of natural resource development, and could cause tension with those who view these rights as obstacles. What are you saying there, Notley? Like, are you saying we should have our resource rights? We should be Section 92, 93? 93 is the resource rights. Is that really what you're saying? Because that would be new for you. Or you just claiming that there's uncertainty on an economic level, and the only way to address it is to talk to those whose rights were vitiated. Really? How about we get back to what we were supposed to be doing all along? Close a couple issues for good, address them if there was tragedies and horrific things. Finally, address it, and if not, we close that chapter. I think everybody could get back to business if we can heal some of these wounds that keep getting torn open on a repeated basis. And I think Indigenous communities feel the same way. They would like closure too, and they do want to look forward to a prosperous and more beneficial relationship with provincial, federal, even on a global stage as well. They don't really have access to the global market like most places do. Maybe that's one of the things that they could be looking at. But I would like to see a lot more togetherness to the sovereignty level. Like, we could be neighbors, but I'm not a fan of trying to separate those even more. I would like them to work closer together. Keep sovereign land, but work closer together. So on that one, I would give it to Danielle, only because she's going to tie resources into it, and what's good for them is good for us when it comes to resource development as well. So that could be a good path forward economically for everybody. When it comes to Notley, she's rhetoric, so I don't see any real movement there on her front. Let's jump now to economic recovery and job creation. So well, first, I keep doing this. I got to jump back to your tweets here. Or your comments. No new comments. All right, Indigenous. You guys agree completely with what I'm saying, I guess. But anyways, go ahead and put some comments in if you like. And we'll remind you all, take this moment to remind you to go ahead and put some comments in below. If you're watching this as a replay, put some chats in if you're online now, watching this live, and make sure that we get everything in here. And let me just delete. So Ali, I deleted the old subscribe button so I don't push it, and here's a new one. Subscribe now. So please go ahead and give them a like and a subscribe down below, and we can keep this community growing. It would be great. Oh, Ellen's got a comment here. Equity equals stagnation, and then equality equals innovation. Yeah, we'll have a conversation about this. I think we're on the same wavelength here, Ellen. You don't take from others and give to others and call it a day. You assist people and give them the same opportunities, the same abilities. You don't give them advantages. This is life, not golf. You don't give advantages based on many things. So I think if we all have the equal opportunity, then we're on the right track. But if we believe that equality, which is taking from one and giving to another, is the right path forward, I don't agree with that. You're stealing and then you're enabling. So under that formula, I don't think it's prosperous, and I don't think it's productive. But I can see an entire episode about that one, Ellen. And I am looking for some more subject ideas in the coming weeks. So if there's any particular subjects you'd like to see, jot it down in the chat. And Ali, you can keep track of them. Thanks, bud. All right, economic recovery and job creation. So COVID hit us pretty good, right? Things were locked down. Our energy sector got hit. A couple prongs like that, some bad weather, and it starts to hurt. It starts to hurt quite a bit. So Danielle, she believes, we'll see, reducing government intervention in business and supporting the oil and gas industry can boost jobs creation and stimulate economic recovery. Though that's like the Donald Trump approach, right? Get out of the way of the oil companies, drill. That's that approach. And I'm not against that one. I am and my stance on some of the climate stuff. I am for ensuring that we can have economic stability and we can leverage and benefit from the resources that we have. This is how most economies work. We utilize natural resources, whether it's wood, oil, water, minerals, lots of things. We absolutely do. And this is global, and we've been doing this all the time. Technically, I do that too when I grow a garden, okay? Using the natural resources to produce. And then I take those things I produce, turn them into consumables and consume or produce like Zario does. He is one of the most organically natural person you can have because he's a woodworker. He's taking wood and he's creating stuff out of it, of value, of use, and maybe one day it'll become famous. But no, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm sorry, I'm bugging you guys with that subscribe now button. I will take that off your screen for you. So, drill, baby, drill. Okay, that's kind of Danielle's pro. Her con, this approach might lead to an over-reliance on the oil and gas industry and potentially exacerbate, that's a big word for me, exacerbate environmental problems. Okay. That big thing that we like to blame everything on, environmental problems. Here's my position on this particular one. Cleaner is better in everything, whether we're talking about your kitchen counter or the oil and gas industry. Cleaner is better, not a requisite at this stage, because we are cleaner than we used to be. We continuously to be cleaner. And because in a lot of ways, cleaner does translate into more profits. There's certain fights that you don't have to fight when you're being cleaner, especially on regulation and environment. There is stuff out there that would be costly, and it also helps the reputation of the companies. So on a global scale, if you're the cleaner oil company, that does give you an advantage on the open market. But at the end of the day, you're never going to be completely clean. There's resources, like everything that we do when we're mining, when we're extracting, when we are refining, everything has a cost to it. But you sure don't seem to mind to have your heat in the winter and stuff like that. So it's what it is. Like we're not perfect. Nothing's perfect. And anything that we do to create energy, for the most part, is going to produce some sort of waste or pollution, whether it's even solar production or windmills, everything at some place has some sort of production that will have some waste. And, it's not perfect. Even when you're doing your own stuff on your land, you cut down a tree, you do your best to use it all, but some of it will be burnt as firewood, some of it will be chipped, and some of it will just go into a pile and turn into compost. There's going to be waste in anything you do. Humans produce waste themselves, and we got to do stuff with that too. And that was one of the reminders when we moved to empty land and had nothing here, was where do we put that stuff? Just for those that know, we contained it and then we pumped it out. But anyways, we have to deal with waste in different ways. This is no different. So, oil is a big driver. The energy sector is a big driver. Globally, energy is needed. Europe, during this war, they need it. They need energy. And we can get into how Trudeau snafu'd Alberta on that one in another episode. But, this is why we need our sovereignty. We need to be able to enter open markets. We need to be able to go into the markets without Ottawa's permission or oversight or restrictions. I like Danielle's idea about Port Churchill, though. I do like that idea. It's getting hard to get through BC to the west. We're getting lots of things in the way, but maybe we need to go a bit east and pump out of Churchill. NDP, though, the pros, they're saying diversifying Alberta's economy could make it more resilient to fluctuations in the oil and gas sector and could create new types of jobs. I don't disagree with this. Diversifying. So build the energy sector, use the energy sector, profit from the energy sector, but don't rely on it forever. You're going to have the same problem as the UAE. So Abu Dhabi, Dubai, they were heavily reliant on oil for their wealth, And it didn't take them long to realize that that won't last forever, and they need to create other industries and have other contributions to the global market in order to sustain themselves after oil runs out or gets traded out or gets phased out. In either case, isn't the primary economic driver. I don't want to see Alberta fall into that. If we are mainly reliant upon one type of resource, and for whatever reason, whether it's through um, natural reasons or political reasons, we don't have access to that, that does become a problem. So for this one, I do side a little bit with Notley, who is saying, let's move to more reliance on other types of economic drivers than oil. I do like that. So if we could put both of them together, go ahead and utilize the resources you have now, do it in the cleanest way possible, but also diversify the economy so that we're not reliant upon one major sector. And when that major sector takes a hit for whatever reason, global war, whatnot, that we are able to, sustain ourselves through it. So I would say this is kind of a tie in that they both have good approaches, and it would be great if they both kind of teamed up on their approaches on this one, because I think they both have things that we can benefit from. Continue to drill and continue to diversify our economic position. So let's go and see. We have Eleanor. Welcome, Eleanor. Good morning. Lurking and listening. These issues feel important, but so fringe when it comes to, oh yeah, UDRIP, etc., that are global and possibly devastating. I want our votes to matter, but do they really? Eleanor, yeah, I think we should get into, not today, but we'll get into, I think, quite a few times, the global impact, UNDRIP, others. Okay. This one's a nasty one, though. This one's using pain and suffering in order to get some power and control. So UNDRIP is a sad one. And if you don't know what it is, look it up. We will talk about that one soon. Okay, Eleanor? All right. So economic recovery and job creation, we'll see. We'll see. Energy sector is our bigger driver. We should be utilizing it, but we should also be expanding to other industries as well. I want to see tech. I really want to see tech take off in Alberta. I really think we could be world leaders in clean energy, all energy. I think we'd be world leaders in. So solar, wind, geothermal. We could be a leader in changing empty wells that we dug into geothermal wells. Half the battle's done if the well's already dug. Anyways, I would like to see us become innovator leaders so we can test the technology and help improve it. Having such a cold climate, such a varied climate, gives us a good testing ground. So if it works in Alberta, it can work everywhere. That's kind of the idea there. Another top issue is supporting women's shelters and sexual assault counseling centers. Great. Okay. But not sure why that's a big issue, because why are we just simply not doing that already? So Danielle, she's making a pledge. Pledging funds to these services can offer support to vulnerable groups and contribute to the safety and well-being of society. Don't have a problem there. I definitely do agree with protecting people that when they need help. And then the con to that one, though, is pledging specific sum might limit the flexibility to increase support if demands for these services increase over the next 4 years. So the con, that's the pushback to her proposal, is you're capping it. So is that going to be a reasonable ceiling for it? Is that going to be enough? And what if it's not? Is it going to stall the programs? We don't know. She hasn't covered that. And then Notley is promising to provide immediate funding for these services and can offer essential support for vulnerable groups, potentially improving social well-being. She is using the term vulnerable groups a lot. So I'm not sure if this is to expand who could be a vulnerable group and who's going to be protected under these things. And then some of the cons that have been brought up is the cost of this commitment by Notley might require cuts to other programs or increased taxes, potentially leading to financial strain. So that happens every single time that the NDP, Liberal parties start to talk about additional programs and expanding programs, the money's got to come from somewhere else. So what's going to be cut if that's the case? Because she's not really explaining how she would pay for it, but they are. Now, my concern around this one is the definition of woman. Honestly, that's my concern around this one. It's for women. Okay. What I don't want to be seen is they're expanding the definition of women in this context, that women's shelters can now have biological males in it. This is where I absolutely don't think another line should be crossed. So this is why it's on my list here. I want to keep an eye on it. Not so much for the support, because I believe we will be getting support to the people that need it, but for the political definition of how they may be twisting this. We may be hearing what a woman is on this context. Don't think Danielle has touched that at all. I haven't heard anything around those lines, but Notley has, because she's using terms like vulnerable people instead of women. So she might be trying to expand that. That's what her base would want. So I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Let's keep an eye on that one. That could be a hot topic. That could be an issue. That could be a divider. And I'm really sad when I see important issues like safety of women being turned into a divisive issue because of political reasons. So we'll keep an eye on that one. We'll see if that one happens. We're now on to climate change and environmental policies. Like my least favorite topic, because both sides are toting that one. Both sides are toting that one. Let me just jump to a comment here before I jump to that one, because this is my least favorite. I may take a cup of coffee here. Zario, what are you saying here, bud? I don't think we're there yet for the transition from oil and gas to pure. No. The tech is still years off. Does Alberta pivot to mining? Mining, what do we have really for mining? Coal, other minerals. Ontario is great for that. They have lots of mining out there. And yeah, you're right, Ozario. We use gasoline to generate electricity when our renewable system does not produce enough. It's absolutely true. The production of solar panels and wind farms and stuff have environmental impacts. They have shelf lives. They don't last forever, but they certainly can assist. And here's where I'm going with this. Do we have to pick oil or sun or wind, or can we work with everything together and just incrementally keep improving them? I think that's the smarter approach. If you're into software and technology, it's like agile development, agile systems, incrementally changing them continuously, incrementally improving them continuously, putting new improvements out quicker, not trying to develop the perfect thing and get it out there, increment and test. I think Alberta could become a global leader in that particular industry, which is innovation in energy production, all types of energy production. I think we can be a world leader in that. We can teach everybody how to get more out of the sun. We can teach everybody how to get more out of the wind, out of the ground, out of the oil. I think that would be a fantastic industry if we could start attracting those type of people here. And that would kind of cover several issues. It could help with the environmental concerns of some people, economic requirements of some people, and also sovereignty. If we're able to develop industries and work really hard and bring in some great minds and develop a great reputation on the global stage, even on a sovereignty issue, this helps. So several of the important issues to Albertans can be addressed if we start to develop a high-tech industry of energy. And Alberta can be a leader in that. We've already started to be a leader in that with oil sands, right? We are working hard on cleaning that up as much as we can, but still produce the output of the resource. So on that front, we're already kind of doing that. We can do more. And I think that's where investment should be. It should be into the technical advancement of energy discovery and innovation. I think we should be doing that. John says, your thoughts on Mad Max seeking the nomination in the upcoming by-election for... Oh, yeah. So, okay. So I was fighting with Maxime Bernier, PPC, right? The leader. This is who John's talking about. Little sidetrack here, John, because I saw that news come up, and I was like, my fight with him was I thought he was going to come take Yellowhead. Okay, when I was offered the candidacy for the PPC for Yellowhead, happened last year. This was the deal breaker for me. Was Maxim? He announced to everybody that he was looking for a place to run because his particular backyard that he lives in, not a chance. There's not a chance that he will win. So he had to look for other places. There was a lot of rumor about him going east out to New Brunswick and maybe that way. But I suspected his strongest place would be in the prairies somewhere, because the prairies, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, is more primed to take a chance on a PPC candidate or independent candidate and give up a seat for a conservative candidate. The waters and the times are about right for that. So I'm not surprised to see him end up in Manitoba. That's close to Winnipeg, I believe. Portage, yeah, that might be part of Winnipeg. Not quite sure where that riding is, but I'm glad to see that he's made it. I do want to see new leadership. I do want to see the PPC take some seats. If it's not a strong independent candidate in that riding, then PPC would be where I would be leaning towards. Again, it's candidate though. Like, I'd have to see what kind of candidate they're putting forward, because that was another struggle with the PPC party, being so scrappy, so young, kind of desperate. They're taking on almost anybody that has the ability to say Maxim and maybe say a couple French words, bonjour, mademoiselle, comment ça va? And then they put you forward. So as flattered as I was, I didn't feel like the vetting process was proper. I didn't feel like I was actually looked at well enough before offered the position. And I definitely saw that with other candidates that were in positions. They have a lot of young, enthusiastic, lots of energy, but that also comes with inexperience. They're not sure what they're talking about, and they don't have exposure to a lot of things that you do want an MP to have: global, business, legal, some exposure and all of that. But yeah, I think he has a chance to win it, because what I do know is they were working very, very hard at finding a riding that had the most potential for him to win. And so there's a good chance they feel that that's the one. I do feel that they would have come after Yellowhead had I been this active for the PBC for the last year. I believe you would have saw the announcement that he was coming to Alberta. Anyways, glad to see he's found a spot. He's going to move his family to, and maybe it'll work out for him. I do want to see some new blood in the House, and if Maxim's going back in under the PPC, that might be a good thing. That might be a good thing. I think we'll have a lot more interesting debates in the House with him there. Okay. And I would like to see him team up with possibly the Bloc in order to have a stronger representation in the House. The Bloc has been very good at keeping the positions of a conservative mind, and could be good allies. And this morning's stream is like an oasis of sanity on the internet. Great show, great chat. You're finding some sanity. I'm very pleased for you, Peter. Welcome back, buddy. Just saying what I'm observing, and we're talking about an important issue. And I don't take government funds, not even on a personal level. I farm, we sell eggs, we sell firewood. We do what we can to pay the bills around here. So I'm not influenced by anything other than my passion to protect my children. Peter, I have a child with disabilities, and we homeschool. So my concern is sometime in the future, some person is going to determine that my son requires their attention and their education. And if we are in a society where the state gets to make the decisions for your child, I don't feel confident that they're going to listen to my arguments that well. So I'm going to do what I can to try and separate the, not church and state, but parents and states, because we should still be making a lot of these decisions. And the current trend is the state's taking over parenting. So this is where my motivation is coming in, Peter. I really, really, really want to protect my children and their future. And that's not just a talking point. Specifically, I'm concerned about them coming after the education of anybody who's homeschooling, because I think that will be one of the steps that they make in order to ensure that they get the programming into your children, is they're going to attack and come after homeschooling. And then anybody who's homeschooling a child with disabilities like we are, I think we will be the first ones that they will come after because it will use my child's disability as their reason for intervening. Maybe it's a paranoia, but when I see Quebec allowing children to make decisions on health and surgeries without their parent, and the laws are allowing that, I don't think I'm wrong. I think that that would be what the trend would say. And I also know Quebec is not very homeschool friendly. So they will be probably one of the first to kind of crack down on homeschooling. So on the federal level, this is where I want to come and put some protections in and then make sure that we're separating the parents from the desires of the state when it comes to parental decisions like school, healthcare, etc. That's my push here, Peter. Sorry for that rant there, guys. Tomorrow is the federal candidate episode. So I've kind of been prepping for that, and that's all top of mind. And there'll be a lot more of that tomorrow, especially around my, I don't know, validated or not validated paranoia about the education options I'm going to have for my children. So we'll tackle that when it comes. All right. So climate change and environmental, lots of the same propaganda from both of them. I don't like Danielle's stance on some of this. She does seem to be a little WEFy. She didn't fight the fertilizer issue, even though our farmers were screaming and yelling for it. She did not get on any bandwagon there, and did not, other than maybe I think one or two little statements she made, like little ones, but not a major issue for her. And then of course Notley, this is the big driver for her side when it comes to agenda and stuff. She blames job losses on it. She says we'll create nothing but great stuff if we tackle the environmental issue. I don't agree. I've been hearing that for far too long and seeing no progress. So I don't agree with not on that one. And I would like to see Danielle take a firmer stand on that, but I think she's holding back because of the election. Maybe we'll hear some more out of her on climate change in the near future. But right now, I would say neither one of them gets my vote on climate change. And now here we are, education, funding, and reform. Okay. Danielle supports homeschooling. Notley supports expanding the schools and protecting the teachers and ensuring that certain curriculum is in there. This doesn't sound like a homeschool supporter if she's really focusing on education in the system, not education in the province. Education in the province would include homeschooling and public schools and all types of schools, private. She definitely has her attention on the public school system and keeping your kids in it. So I'm going to give my vote to Danielle on this one because this is where I have a big concern about losing my rights as a parent in education because we are homeschooling both boys. JJ, a little advanced over his peers. Kind of natural that he takes on subjects quite well and he learns them quite well and he's very curious and moves along quickly. So the education that he was receiving prior in Ontario was a slower pace than he was able to process. And then Jacob's on the other side of that spectrum with Down syndrome. It gives him challenges, but he's rocking it. He is reading. He is talking. He's at 6. He's doing great for it, but it would require additional attention. Similar to my older JJ, he requires additional attention to keep him moving or he'll get bored and be done. And then Jacob requires additional attention for different reasons, but still lots of energy. And that's why that plus the strikes, plus the COVID, plus JJ has asthma and COVID wouldn't be a good thing for him. At least at the time when COVID was coming out, that's what our thinking was. And then Jacob, children with Down syndrome do have some issues that could be complicated with respiratory. So both of them, we had concerns about COVID. And so the strikes, both of them needed additional attention. And then the COVID issue all popped up like at the same time in Ontario. It became super, super easy to understand that we needed to homeschool. So that's why we did that. Alberta, by far, in our research, was the most welcoming for homeschooling. Okay, Quebec, I don't even think they have a word for it, okay? But in Alberta, it is supported. The way it works here is you connect with a school district, so everybody's registered at a school, and I believe our school district for our boys is in Calgary. Not up here by Edmonton or anything. It's in Calgary. And Padge, throw that in the chat and correct me if I'm wrong. But we check in regularly. They have conversations where they check in with the kids. What level are they at? And it's great. It's great. We're able to homeschool like 4 hours a day, vigorously working on various subjects with both of them at their paces, and we're supported well. And I believe Alberta does provide some funding for homeschooling to cover resources and stuff that they would have covered had they been in public school. So very, very good. And I want to keep seeing that. From Danielle, what we're hearing that's good is a review of the education curriculum, and increased parental choice could lead to improved education standards and cater to diverse needs. There's a diverse word, but in this context, I'm using that word as homeschooling, private, public. There's a diverse options out there. This is not a cultural diversity. This is an educational option diversity. And so I do like it when she's talking about parental choice. That needs to be there. And I do like that she's talking about checking out the curriculum, because some of the curriculum is outdated. Some of the curriculum does need to be modernized, and some of the curriculum is ideological, and some of that needs to be taken out. I'd like to see her push a little bit more on not just parental choice for schools, but for curriculum itself as well. I do like the idea, even for homeschooling, where at the beginning of the year, you will choose the curriculum for your child that you intend or expect from the next year. And that's how the curriculum is decided for your child, not necessarily the school board. The school board should be filtering and providing curriculum that should be appropriate under the guidance of the parental teacher union and stuff like that. But she, sorry, Ali, you just distracted me there. But she, sorry, parental choice. Yeah. So I believe you should be able to pick the curriculum for the entire year. And the school board should be providing the curriculum options, and that's how it's happening. I don't even think it'd be that complicated with today's society. Not everybody wants to learn, let's say, religion in school, so they can opt out of that one. But if somebody wants to learn more about arts or something else, go nuts. I believe parents should be picking the curriculum. And if you're a good parent, you're doing that with your child as well. You're making a part of that process and explaining why we're not selecting that CRT thing for you, but we are selecting that, a physical activity option for you. Cons, though, for Danielle, this approach might increase inequality in the education system, with children from better off families having more opportunities. I'm going to push back on that one, because what is it you're saying? Are you saying that homes that have more to provide to their children should be what? We should be not letting them do that because other homes can't do that? I don't like those arguments. I don't like the arguments where they say, well, you should be without because others are without. Well, I think the argument shouldn't be that. It should flip it. Try and help those people without, so that they do have. So what specifically is it that you think that a house with more resources, or better off, as you call it, what are they providing? More attention with the kids, more parent-child time? What is it they provide? Focus on providing that with the other homes instead of trying to limit the houses that can give it. And look, even the UCP is making statements that make me worried that the state is going to determine what is and isn't appropriate for my child in my homeschooling. So because we are not super wealthy, do you think we can't do it? Is that where you're getting off going with this? Or if we are providing a great environment for our kids and we are providing more than our neighbors, should we not? Like, I know Paula does a lot of work on connecting with other homeschooling groups all over the place so that the kids can get together, learn that activity, learn that subject, and socialize and all that good stuff too. share germs so they can build their immunity. Are you going to interfere with that? Come on, Danielle. I'd like a little bit more clarification around what you mean by that. That better off homes have a disadvantage? That sounds like a Notley statement to me. But she is for parental choice, and I do like some of the things she's saying around whether or not we should be deciding. I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit because we are running out of time, and there's a few more subjects I'd like to get to. So when it comes to education, I'm giving like a half point to Danielle on that because she is pushing parental choice, but I'm a little bit concerned of what she means by increased inequity, or by giving parental choice, what she means by my increase in equity. Then, of course, Notley, regular sound bites out of her. Increase funding, doesn't say from where. Reduce class size. We're going to need more rooms. Like, how do you plan to do that? We are creating more, so how can you do that? And then the modernizing curriculum could improve the quality of education for all children. Depends what you mean as modern. Does modern mean CRT? Critical race theory? Does that mean that? If so, does modern mean sexualizing topics about the sexualization of children or sexuality of children at a very, very, very young age? Is that modernizing? Then we're gonna have some problems there, Notley. And then she's also, as a con, if that wasn't a con enough, it might lead to increased public expenditure. Well, of course, you just said increase funding, which could necessitate higher taxes or reductions in other public services. That's 100% all the time. What the Liberals don't say out loud is everything that we're offering here is going to either come with higher taxes or other services are going to be dropped. And what they don't do is they don't identify which ones they're going to take from. If they did that, then maybe we would understand better. But they don't. They just say, yeah, we want to spend a lot more money here, smaller classrooms. Here's one way to get smaller classrooms, Notley: homeschooling. Encourage homeschooling. People who can homeschool, kind of like the private public healthcare. If people can homeschool, they're out of the public system, leaving the resources, leaving the chairs for students who can't homeschool. So if you would push homeschooling, you would get the reduced class sizes without any major effort. If you would encourage people to homeschool, you would get reduced class sizes. But she's not talking about that at all. So it makes me feel like she is definitely headed towards institutional education. She believes that your kids are not in good hands unless they're in her hands. So I definitely have to give this one to Danielle. Affordable housing. Okay. Issues since the beginning of time. Affordable housing. People want to be comfortable. They want to be secure. They want to be safe. It impacts their health, both mental and physical. Housing is important. Very, very important. Look, I'm in trailers. I have a trailer that we're living in, and I have a trailer that I'm doing a studio in. And when we had evacuees, they were in a trailer. Okay. Housing is important. Very important. And we certainly take it seriously. Danielle's talking about private sector solutions. Okay. And less regulation could stimulate the housing market and provide affordable housing through market mechanisms. I want to know more. What do you mean? Are we getting into mini homes? Are we getting into ghetto? Like, what do you mean here? Are we talking about large, ugly buildings that have small apartments just to be able to call it affordable housing? What is the private sector solution you're talking about, Danielle? I'd like to know more. Are you talking about prefab homes? Are you talking about ready-made, 1,000 or smaller square foot homes, tiny homes? Are you talking about sprinkling them all over the place? Are you talking about sticking them into allowing people to put a tiny home into their backyard of their house? Like, what are you talking about? I'd like to have a little bit more information on that, other than toting that you think a private solution is available here. I'm all for private. But I'd like to know a little bit more what you mean by that. It wasn't clear to me as I was going through your propaganda. It wasn't clear to me what you meant by that. The condos, his approach might fail to provide sufficient affordable housing for low-income individuals and could potentially lead to market exploitation. Okay, well, that's a good pushback to privatization of housing, exploitation. We saw that in the privatization of the prison system in the U.S. They were caught exploiting, giving people in youth longer sentences than they normally would in order to keep the profits up, yada, yada, yada. Exploiting public services in a private environment is something that does happen. But I need to know more about what she means by private sector solutions. Do we have a horrible solution? Like currently, I don't hear stories in winter of people dying and freezing on the streets. I don't hear stories of people taking up large areas of the city. So I'm not saying there is no housing issue. I know that in Breton and around here, renting and buying is very difficult. There's like no options. There's a lot of people that do what we do. We are in trailers. So I want to know a little bit more exactly like which issue is she tackling? The homelessness one where people are on the street, or just too many people in one home is considered not appropriate or not accommodating. I'd like to know a bit more about what Danielle specifically wants to do about housing. Notley, on the other hand, she just simply says the same thing and just invest in affordable housing projects and ensure fair rent prices could provide homes for low income individuals and contribute to social equity. There's that word again. So she definitely means ghettos. So she's not even being coy about it, and she's not even trying to hide it. She means very low income housing for large groups of people. So you're talking about big areas where you're going to get ghetto-like living. I'm not saying that that's the wrong approach. I'm just saying that's what you're talking about here. Say it loud and proud if that's what you mean. I don't see anything in her statements about helping young people save up. There's no savings program. My first house savings account. Start putting away money very early. Start encouraging people to do that. Start giving tax breaks to parents who are going to pass some of their wealth to their children for housing. There should be some sort of tax break for that. I know that when I was going through it, there isn't. You definitely have to declare everything as income. So maybe that's what we need to do, something along those lines. Estate taxes, inheritance taxes, things that make it difficult from family who's already pay taxes on their money to contribute to their offspring, to their family. It's already the family's money that was taxed via income and sales and other stuff. So there should be another one. So I would like to see that. And Notley, this is something that you should be talking about. Tax breaks for families that are supplying housing and education to, and even healthcare, to family members. There should be a mechanism where we're not being taxed on that, if you really take this issue seriously. Okay, and then Azario actually just said, anything on taxes? Well, Azario, my next section is called tax policy. So there you are with your spider senses again. This is another time where you were one step ahead of us on this side. So are you in my computer? Do you see my notes? But wonderful. Yeah, taxes is next. Azario. So let me go ahead and pull that off. Let me take this option because we're getting close to the end again. That was quick. Please like and subscribe. Go ahead and push those buttons for me, and also share. If you like this, there's a good chance that the people around you like it as well, or may like it. If you're finding some good information in here, they may as well. So please also go and share, and don't be shy. Be bold. Say, hey, XYZ, I believe you'll find this interesting, and there's some good information in here. And then they share, and then they share, and then we become the COVID of the internet, right? Everybody gets it. Tax policy. All right, the big one. You're taking money from the people. Do you want more? Do you need more? Can we get some back? Can you save us some money? What are you going to do with our taxes? Alberta certainly pays their fair share and then some. As you know, we send a lot of money to other provinces. Equalization payments. So this is a hot topic in Alberta, a very hot topic. So you get some of the regular stuff out of Danielle. Low taxes can attract investment, stimulate economic growth, and potentially create more jobs. Yes, and yes. These are pretty obvious, common sense. But you can't say this statement and then have programs that you want funding. So this is where I think Notley falls flat. She falls flat because she has basically, I have 10 points here, and 9 of them are additional spending on her part. So where are you getting this from? So for example, on the education one or affordable housing, she was saying, yeah, we're gonna have to increase taxes. So So Danielle is saying pretty typical stuff. If you can lower taxes, business comes in. And that's not wrong. That's true. And if we want to attract businesses to Alberta, it has to be a good business environment for them. It can't be one where the government is going to tax your money or regulate you into low margins or no opportunity. So we definitely need to do stuff on that front. And then some of the cons, though, lowering taxes might lead to insufficient public resources or revenue, of course, impacting the government's ability to fund public services. Seems so simple. Empty wallet, you can't do much. But what I'm not seeing out of her is any specific programs. Like I would like to see her cut any inheritance taxes, any taxes that are involved in moving money from one family member to another. She hasn't talked about that. I'd like to see her talk about specifically where there is opportunity to increase the tax on this side and then lower the tax on this side. Is there any balancing that can go on? Are there any industries that can afford a little bit more taxes while others need a reduction in order to stimulate them? So I would like to hear more about that. Specifically, which sectors can you do this to? And still not hurt the revenue of the province. Notley, on the other hand, is even way worse. Progressive tax policies can ensure that corporations and high-income individuals contribute their fair share, potentially leading to more revenue for public services. Get out of here with this fair share stuff of the rich. What are you talking about? You are absolutely not being truthful when you say that. I'm not wealthy, but I do know that the higher your bracket goes, the more you're taxed. I do know that estate taxes, inheritance tax, there's a whole whack of rich people taxes already in place. And last, if you do the math, this is a bogus statement. You take all their money, take every single penny from them, and it doesn't do what these people say it's going to do. The truth is you're spending way too much and you're handing way too much money to people who didn't earn it and who are requiring you to do that. You're also spending way too much money on programs that are there for the purpose of making people feel better, but not prosper. It's one thing to help somebody, become active in the job market, get them an education. But it's another thing to just provide more than they need to live because you're encouraging them to go ahead and stay in that state. So whenever I hear Democrats or New Democrats or liberals talk about taking from the rich to give to the poor, the Robin Hood one, they're lying. They're lying. They're simply lying. If you do the math, it's not there. The money's not there. And that's not where all the money went. So it's just a talking point because it gives 99 versus 1%. And that's what this does. It doesn't actually tell you what and how much. Like if you said, if we took this much percent out of the rich in Alberta, it would create this much money, and then we can do these things with it. But she doesn't do that math because that math isn't impressive. A majority of our money comes from everybody. We all pay taxes, sales, fuel, income. We all pay taxes. And that's where it's coming from. The rich do pay, and they also do pay, relatively speaking, their fair share. So I'm not a fan of that one. So when it comes to tax policies, I think they both get an F. They didn't impress me on this one. Danielle didn't tell me which ones she's going to cut and how they're going to work. And I would take higher taxes on certain sectors, on certain things, if there was room for it, without jeopardizing the sector. But I don't hear her talking about that at all either. Like, for example, if we do remove some of the regulations and we do open the market up for our energy, does that give us the potential to increase the taxes on that activity? And if so, will that help offset, healthcare, education, housing? Let's talk about that kind of stuff, Danielle. So I believe the industry, if you can let them open up and prosper, they will absolutely be able to absorb additional taxes. And that might be a way to do it. I also don't see her talking about removing things like carbon taxes and stuff like that. Some of those made up, make-believe ones. I would like to hear more from her on that one. So for that, they both fail. Womp womp. But there's opportunity to kind of get me back on your side if I can hear certain things come out of you. State taxes, inheritance taxes, carbon taxes. Let's talk about those. All right, the last one for today. Let me see if there's any more chats, but you guys seem to be very attentive today. Very happy to listen. Cool. So no more chats right now. Immigration and integration policies. So another tough one because I am for immigration to an extent. I do believe we need more people to fill jobs in our economy. There are certain positions where Canadians are not headed in that direction, and there's going to be a deficiency in that market. My gosh, at least 20 years ago, yeah, it was before I was married. 20 years ago, I was working with the Economic Development Fund of Canada and another branch dealing with immigration. And when I was talking to them about like what's the issue that we need to worry about, it was trades. Nobody was going into plumbing. Nobody was going into electrical. Nobody was going into trades. Railroad was smart enough to get her daughter into welding, but this was a problem. So on an immigration level, they were looking to attract immigrants to Canada to fill the void that was happening when it came to trades. That's still a problem. I know in Alberta, we had a nursing shortage due to policy, but we also had a nursing shortage. So there was a talk about accepting nurses that wanted to come to Alberta, fast tracking them into the immigration process. You know, immigrants do things for us too. They do bring their wealth with them. They do bring their children with them. They do bring their prosperity with them here. My wife is an immigrant. She's from Nigeria. She immigrated to Canada just before the wedding. I don't see a problem with the concept of immigration. Where we run into problem is when it gets politicized, when it is turned into an issue just to attack the other side. So if the conservative side is saying we need to limit immigration, the other side says you don't want immigration and you're cruel to people. But what they're really saying is we want to be a little bit more picky on immigration and work within the numbers that we can afford as a country, while the other side is saying you don't care about children and women and people who are dying in their countries. That's kind of where that conversation goes. And we also have a bit of an issue where there was for a while migrants coming up through Quebec and causing issues there, stretching their resources. Our resources, because we pay for those programs as Albertans. But it was stretching those resources. So it's an important issue. So what Danielle is saying is along the lines of a conservative approach, which is stricter immigration controls can potentially ensure that newcomers are better integrated into Alberta's cultural norms and values. Yeah. Like we've had a couple large groupings of people enter our cities. I believe Ukraine, we got a big chunk. Syria, we got a big chunk, and others. Sometimes there's a big spike in crime shortly after. Cultural differences, misunderstandings on how we do things here, or just straight up criminals. We do have some problems, and that would happen with any place where you put an influx of people. When it's not prepared to handle them and it's not prepared to utilize them, it's just to add them, then it adds problems. So I think this is where Danielle's going with that. Like, look, if we're going to be humanitarian, we're going to take refugees, we got to make sure that we have the systems in place so that they become productive members and not burden on the society. And if someone feels productive and they have opportunity, they can stay away from things like opportunist behavior, like criminal activity. That would be a benefit. I think we would definitely have a nice, stronger community if what we were focused on was adding productive members to society and not just filling quotas or making sure that we can let everybody in. I know that typically um, the voting of immigrants once they become citizens and get voting power typically is more liberal because they do feel like an obligation if this one side says we want everybody. And I believe that's why the liberals do that still. They don't believe that it's going to strengthen Canada. They believe it's going to strengthen their voting base. And it's kind of where we see this happen everywhere. The States and Europe. And I know that when we're visiting England, there were a lot of migrants trying to make their way across through the Channel, which is the Channel Tunnel. We actually were blocked from being able to cross because of that. So we had to take a ferry. Anyways, immigration is an issue everywhere, but I think it works best when there is a plan for productivity. So once the people get here, the family gets here, are they going to prosper and add to the country, or are they going to join the dependables, the dependents, the people who are dependent on our government? The con for Danielle, of course, is this approach might limit the diversity of the labor force, and it could be perceived as unwelcoming, impacting Alberta's international reputation. I don't know when and how and why it's even important to have diverse labor force, whatever that means. You better be talking about diversity of skills, because if you're talking about diversity of anything else, it's inappropriate in this context, because the labor force is about skills and nothing else. Not sure what you're implying there, but we don't need a diversity of skills. We need expertise in skills. So I'm going to assume that's what you mean, because if it's anything other types of diversity, there's no place in the context of employment for that, and nobody should be restricting anybody based on any of those factors and variables. So, Daniela, I'm hoping you're talking about increasing our skills and the diversity of the skills. We'll learn more from others. They can bring more expertise and experiences with them. If that's what you're saying, okay. But if you say we need different colors in the workforces, I would definitely not agree with that. That doesn't even make sense. We are what we are. It's our skills and productivity that's important in this context. But Notley, welcoming immigration policies and programs to assist newcomers and integrate could enrich Alberta's cultural diversity and labor force. Pretty easy to say. If we have systems to integrate, then great. And I think that's what both are saying. Okay, both are saying that. But she takes it a step further. The resources required to support these programs could strain public finances, and there could be resistance from some segments of society. So I'm not sure why she's kind of highlighting that will be expensive when it's her that's using them. So I think what you need to do here, Notley, is understand that the volume or the scale that you are accepting and promoting is the problem to your solution here. It's expensive because you have just too much. You need to lower that number. It needs to be affordable and maintainable and workable. It can't be your idealistic of everybody. It has to be far closer to conservative philosophy, which is you're here because fill in the blank, and if that's acceptable and necessary, you're in. But if you're here just cause, then yeah, it's going to be expensive, and yeah, it's going to be hard to integrate, and yeah, there's going to be problems, Notley. So you should maybe take a look at being strong enough, if you are a strong leader, to give us the real solution here, and that is you need to work on the numbers. Is the volume is too high, and we absolutely, and I didn't hear either one of these candidates speak about this, we absolutely need to fight back the federal government, who from time to time will just do it. They will just ship a whole whack of people to a city and just do it. This is something we see in the US as well. And I don't see either candidate talking about working stronger and working more effectively and standing up to Ottawa when it comes to the federal policies and immigration policies. And I also think that provincial and federal definitely need to cooperate on this issue. It really should be more of a federal issue, but it's a provincial issue because it's the resources and we are the ones housing and providing the space for them. So this particular issue needs to have a little bit more cooperation, and it needs to be collaborative, not top down from the federal government. But neither candidate's talking about that part of this issue. They're just simply talking about the numbers that we can and can't afford. Notley wants all of them, and Danielle wants some of them. So for that reason alone, I'm giving it to Danielle because it's closer to what a reasonable immigration policy is in my mind. And Notley is not. Notley is not explaining how she's going to cover this. So those are the 10 points. And when I rack it up, I've got 7 for Danielle, none for Notley, and a draw on 3 of them. I don't think they have the right answers for everything. Okay. I don't think either one of them has a silver bullet. But for me, the biggest issue, and this is why I'm going to be pushing for Danielle, is the separation issue, the sovereignty issue. I believe that this election is going to be a fork in the road. And I believe that Alberta is going to be the leader for the rest of Canada when it comes to whether or not we're standing up for sovereignty rights or taking a step further towards separation. If Danielle wins, I think we will continue down the road of sovereignty. We'll keep pushing Ottawa to understand that we have our rights. We're going to maintain our rights, and we're going to enforce our rights. And we're going to protect our rights. And if they decide to do anything that's counter to that, we will address it at that time, whatever that may be. I believe if Notley wins, the separatist movement is going to definitely gain a bunch of fuel. There's going to be a whole whack of people who are going to be pushing the separatist movement. There's going to be resistance to the government itself. There's likely going to be a rural-urban conflict in some way where we are in the rural areas ignoring her for the most part, but the cities are going to be backing her because a lot of her stuff is going to be take from the farmers, bring to the city, that kind of approach. So I think if Notley wins, it's going to accelerate the idea of separation here in Alberta. And if Danielle wins, I think it's going to be a lot of the same. The cities are going to be upset and pushing. However, we are going to march towards sovereignty and maybe cleaning up. So Danielle, for those reasons and some others, you have my support. I wish I could say it was like a landslide. There's like no doubt you're the proper person for Alberta for the next term. I think you are the best option we have. Okay, you're definitely a very, very good option. But look, even you are not perfect. Some of Notley's ideas, I think you can expand on them. There's some of them that aren't so bad. But for the most part, Notley, look, not for Alberta. Okay. I think at this stage, not for Alberta. You're going to create division, and division in Alberta is also going to expand on the division in Canada. There's a lot of people in Canada that are looking at Alberta to see where we go, what we do. I know Saskatchewan is looking at standing up strong too, and even Manitoba. Maybe it'll take some inspiration from Alberta. But to all my Albertans out there, get out there and vote. Make sure you do your part this time. To all my rural folks, I know it's a little bit harder for you, but make arrangements, go with a friend, connect through your church or community center or other ways to make sure that you can get there. If you need any help, you can reach out to me. I have some information on federal voting, but they're very similar to provincial voting. Go make sure you're registered, make sure you know where your voting place is, and make sure you get there, especially if you're in rural Alberta. This is a big one for us. We really need to make sure that UCP holds on to power. It's going to get very complicated for us. The nitrogen issue was just a start. We're going to get into they're going to complain about how much water we use. They're going to make statements like produce more food with less resources. There's crazy stuff like that. So we really can't let Notley make this one a victory. If that happens, I think we're going to have one heck of a road ahead of us. That's going to be not just difficult for Alberta, but also difficult for the rest of Canada, because we are providing some hope to a lot of Canadians who believe in independent provinces and solidarity, sovereignty. and solidarity. We definitely do want to be a strong Canadian family, but we want to be individual adults as provinces within the family of Canada. And if that can't work out and separation is our future, I know we'll make it through it. I just don't want to have to. It would be like a divorce. I don't want to have to see that today even happen. But if we can't hold down the fort, if we can't get Notley sidelined for this one, then I suspect it's going to be a very difficult road. Very difficult road. I think economic recovery for Alberta happens with a Conservative government in power in the province, a Conservative government in power on the federal level, and a Conservative government in power in the United States. When those three line up, Alberta prospers. And that's kind of what I would like to see. So, Danielle, you have my support. I hope we can connect. I hope you can come onto the show. I hope we can chat one day about the future of Alberta. And if we continue to make progress and make the steps that we say we're going to take, and then we do them, I do believe Alberta can lead the charge for Canada. And this could be a turning point in Canadian federal and provincial relationships. Maybe Alberta is the one that takes the torch from Quebec and takes it a step or two further and gets that sovereignty in place that we've always had. Okay, so I've got a couple comments here. John's been active. The concept of multiculturalism, inflicted diversity, and bilingualism are cultural Marxist principles. A version of this ideology was first established in rhetoric of Lenin and Mao. Yeah, you look back and diversity, I saw a lot of light there. I'll try that one now. Diversity is just a code word for the woke. Look, when they say diversity, they're talking about race, religion, ideologies, and everything other than skill sets and what you can do. So for me, from an economic standpoint and building up productive members of society, those topics don't actually play a role. So putting our highlight and our focus on it is, I think, misplaced. But thanks, John, for reminding us where it came from. And then Eleanor, voting rights when the numbers immigrating are so high is absolutely concerned. Well, yeah, why? Right, they don't get voting rights right away, right? You have to become permanent resident. You have to go through, I believe, a citizenship to even get the voting rights. But long term, that is their plan. They're just pumping in new people that become new voters, and we see this all over the place. But Eleanor, we do agree that if someone goes through the due diligence of legally becoming a citizen in Canada, go through the entire process, well, then their vote counts. But this is a type of way of vote buying when you're letting large groups of people in with the future potential of having their vote. And then John says, there is a second generation of young Canadians who now believe these principles are beneficial to Canadian society at large. They have had their Canadian identity stripped from them. Yeah, we're not Canadians anymore, are we? Huh? There's another version of Canadians now, which isn't what we grew up with, John. Please get back to me if Thursday or Friday works for you. We can certainly expand on all of these there. I agree, John. It's not the Canada we know and love. 100%, Eleanor. It is very, very, very different. And it's not that we have to be afraid of different, but we definitely have to be comfortable with the new different. And that's not what I'm at. I don't feel comfortable with this new difference. It's very, very different. John, you got quite a few of these moments or these comments. So I'm going to try and save some of them for when we get you on the show, because we only got a couple minutes left here. And then Padge, one of my proudest moments after becoming a Canadian was to vote. Yeah, she was. And we even had this one comment in the car when I said to her, what are you most excited about, the wedding or your passport? And she said, wedding. Wedding. Pa. She started with a pa. Correctly found the right answer. But she was very excited about her wedding. Just putting that out there, my love. Love you, babe. Mix of both, perhaps. I get very skeptical when they start gerrymandering districts for this reason. Whole bunch of things at Clay. And yeah, we have 30 seconds to go. So everybody, thank you so much for being here today. This was a quick one. It was somewhat interactive, but it was Alberta elections for a lot of Ontario viewers. Glad you stuck around for it. I really appreciate that. The show is only great because you guys show up. Quick view of my outside. You can kind of start making out the sun. So that smoke is starting to clear. So everybody, thank you very much for being here. We love to see you here, and you have yourself a great, safe day, and God bless.